Most days when I have the time, I'll sit down at my vanity and add some color to my face. When I first started using makeup, I was maybe 11. I bought a set of lipstick behind my mother's back. I wasn't really allowed to wear makeup unless it was a special event. I used it to paint my lips and my cheeks. Growing up, my eyes would go big whenever we went into department stores, makeup lined up and down the walls. At the time, I'd obsessively watch makeup artists on YouTube, aspiring to one day reach their level of mastery. But I never watched those videos online as intently as I watched my mother doing her makeup. I remember when she went to weddings, she'd wear dark eyeliner, thin brows, glittery dresses, and the scent of her amouage perfume would follow her. The smell would linger in the air as I'd hear her heels click-clacking away from my room after kissing me goodnight. I started doing my eyeliner during COVID. I didn't trust myself to use the real thing, so I used to draw it on with a pen. It is a surprise that I did not go blind. Alas, I'd practice almost every day, and when I finally figured it out, that was my go-to look, and I didn't change it for years. When I was 16, my mom took me to Sephora. Now, I'd been there countless times in the past, but she'd refused to buy me anything. This was the first time I'd owned the very makeup I'd watched YouTubers apply, and it felt like a milestone of sorts. I didn't really discover makeup until I was 17. It was my first prom, and I wanted to look my best, my prettiest. When I think about it now, I did feel pretty. In my last few years of high school, I began adding a bit of color. To accentuate my eyes, I'd line them with blue and white shimmer. Nothing too crazy. I was still somewhat a quote-unquote clean girl, which seems to be the norm these days. Only when I was surrounded by like-minded people, peers from my foundation course in London, did I start to experiment with the way I would present myself. I bought water-activated liners, a set that I'd been eyeing for quite a few years, but now that I had adult money, I could spend it. It was a birthday gift from myself, a new beginning. That was the winter I began to find myself. The first time I used them, it took me a good 2 hours. Pinterest became my best friend as I began to paint myself with all colors of the wheel. I liked how it forced someone to look at my eyes. It meant they couldn't look anywhere else. I only began to experiment more and more with my makeup. After 6 months of playing around with eyeliner, I graduated to eyeshadow. Despite my limited experience in the past, I was determined to learn. That same 12-pound palette that I experimented with still sits amongst my collection to this day. I don't have the heart to throw it out. I still have makeup from over 10 years ago that I hold near and dear. My aforementioned lipstick collection will stay with me until I quite literally can't use it anymore. It expires when I say it does. At some point, the makeup stopped being makeup. It became wearable art. I didn't think much about how obnoxious and crazy the makeup looked until my mother began commenting on it, telling me it was far too much. I'd laugh and tell her it was normal, especially because I was an art student. I'm so uncomfortable with the idea of being perceived at all. I hid myself behind baggy clothes and long bangs. I never dared to look up when I'd walk. My head was always down and looking at the ground. I always felt like I was being stared at, mostly because I was self-conscious of my size and my mannerisms. I always felt like I was taking up too much space, feeling like an inconvenience to everyone around me, including my loved ones. Filters would warp my face and make me unrecognizable, slimming my chin and my nose, enlarging my lips and whitening my teeth. What is the purpose of an online presence if not for the pursuit of unattainable beauty standards? This is where makeup came into play. I dress up my lids, multitudes of colors splashed onto a small canvas, the delicate nature of blending each color to create an amalgamation of shapes and ombres, all for a small piece of art. I think I took to makeup so well due to the delicate nature of it. As an artist working on canvas, most, if not all, of my lines are intentional in my practice. The act of creating looks and executing them made me feel more feminine, graceful, just by the way I present myself. When people ask me what my hobbies are, I always talk about how much I love doing my makeup and my nails. And then I'd internally cringe, because I may be a woman, but surely I'm more interested in activities that aren't so vain. But you get addicted to it. The compliments, knowing people were staring at you not in disgust because of your size or for the sake of judgment, but because of the way you'd done your makeup and wore colorful clothes. It was only about 2 years ago when I felt comfortable enough to wear clothes that were louder in color, a stark contrast to the muted colors I used to wear on a daily basis. This went hand in hand with my makeup. Everything had to match. When I think about my makeup, I think about transformation. I sometimes worry that I might look a bit too different, not the same. When my eyes are dressed up and my skin looks flawless, it feels like an alter ego. I'm still me, my mannerisms are the same and my personality doesn't change, but it's purely visual, and it feels so much more than that. I think that when I first started being creative with my makeup, it was all fun. I didn't really think about whether or not I was hiding behind it. I think for a time I just did it for the compliments, to be seen as interesting and somewhat approachable. I attributed my makeup as a conversation starter, mostly because of my own social anxiety. When my aunt told me I was brave for walking out of the house wearing makeup the way that I did, I was surprised. I don't know why I was. My looks are pretty out there, some bordering on drag. When I explained to her that it was because growing up I hated being perceived, not knowing what I was being looked at for, the makeup felt as a sort of relief. And then I realized that makeup is a buffer for my insecurities and all my doubts. And so I'll keep doing that, because it lets me hide while, quite frankly, looking fabulous. So I'll rinse and repeat, change how my eyes look with new designs, different colors. I'll keep patting my face dry with my beauty blender, concealing all of my scars, those visible and the other ones invisible. I'll hide behind the aesthetic of knowing exactly who I am, even though I still don't have a clue. My whole life, I dressed quite plainly. I felt masculine because I wasn't small like the other girls in my classes. I always felt like an oaf, too big and not dainty enough to be considered feminine. Well, throughout high school, I'd show up in sweatpants, and I still wore those everywhere else. My excuse was that they were the most comfortable option, and they were in a way. I'd have my curly hair obscuring most, if not all, my entire face. I hated the way I looked in real life, living most of my life on my phone. My mother and aunts began to complain at a certain point. They'd tell me off for not being presentable, especially when more than a few of my clothes had paint stains. I'd shrugged them off and told them it wasn't a big deal. Around this time I realized that bigger girls decided to wear loungewear and little to no makeup. They were lazy and unkempt, but when a smaller girl did it, they were just comfortable. Now I dress myself with jewelry, clothes that make me stand out and look unique. I love the maximalism of headwear and my nose chain, draping myself in gold at every opportunity. And before I forget, I always have a set for my hands to match with the rest of my aesthetic. I always design these sets for myself. When I'm bothered to spend more than a day making them, I might pull out my polygel or my acrylic. But nowadays, my favorite method is using clear tips, painting my designs on them, and then adding them on later. I'll spend hours scouring Pinterest, picking and dissecting my favorite sets. And then I'll settle on a theme, but I always end up going for blue. I don't know what it is about the color, but it just gets me. It might be the connotation of having the blues, or maybe it's stability, calmness. I'm still undecided. I got my first acrylic set when I was 16. My best friend just got hers done, and I was obsessed. I'd always bite my nails when I was younger, a habit my parents and teachers loved to call me out on. I got my second set done when I was 17. When I realized I loved the adornment, the maximalism of them, I decided I had to learn how to do them myself. So for years I'd walk around with janky looking nails, contact dermatitis a whisper away. But I got better. When I moved abroad and left all my supplies behind, a small part of me died. I had to start over again. Not doing my nails consistently for 2 years left me feeling like a beginner and frustrated in my inability to do something that used to feel so natural. But like riding a bike, I picked it up again, with a new sense of purpose. I'd spend days designing, planning, and executing, and when it was all done, I was over the moon. I collected, like one does. Artists love to collect, and I am part of the majority. My room is overfilled with makeup and nail supplies I might never use, and I love to joke that I'm an overconsumption queen, and sometimes I do wonder, but at least they're there. And so I'll put on my lip gloss, take pictures of myself, seemingly obsessed and narcissistic, while simultaneously mourning the person I could be if I truly understood myself. I'll put on my perfume and pretend that I'm prancing off to a wedding, kiss my teddy bears goodnight, and try being the person my outward appearance claims I am. Larger than life, self-assured, confident, and charismatic. At least they won't know.